Rack and roll. Shadows of Centrus. Garros couldn't help but be drawn back to the three other men, not only because one of them was the soon-to-be father of his grandchildren, but because there was a presence about them ever since they started moving. Without speaking to each other and at their own paces, each of the three took on a presence of frustration and rage. It was different than what was going on. They had been calm and focused while in danger. Most people resorted to sensing axiom to understand those around them. But after being a teacher for so long and seeing people deliberately hide their emotions away from it, he knew what to look for. All three men were moments away from, at the very least, an argument or perhaps shouting. Maybe more. These humans seem to be a militaristic type. He creeps close and focuses on his hearing as the three mutter to each other. They dedicated themselves to being the cooks in the diner, a way to salvage the get-together that had fallen apart. The normal equipment was for almost everyone's meal, but the men were using the cooker in an odd way. They had added another level to it with wooden chips below it and a series of grills on top. It was well ventilated to keep things away from everyone, but even the slightest whiff that escaped to where Garros had climbed to was enough to make his nose feel like it was set on fire and his eyes tingle. You might want to back away. This bit of the meal here is pretty spice-intensive. The molasses is harmless enough, as is the tomato paste, but the chili powder, black pepper, and salt aren't too friendly to metak. Furthermore, the vinegar can't be too much fun. Koa explains, and Garros gives him a penetrating look. What? Why are you three so angry? Yes, having our get-together ruined was terrible. But no one we know or care about has been hurt. We're still having our get-together in safer environs, and those that attacked us have been punished. You won. Why are you upset? We won in spite of our actions, not because of them, Koa says, looking down in frustration and glaring at the simmering meat, perhaps imagining something, or likely someone else on the grill and cooking. May I have some clarity? Garros asks, and he gets a sideways look from Amadi, and Reggie sighs. We acted like idiot civilians. We got into a little pissing contest as to who had the best weapons and wasted time in a dangerous situation. If our opponents were even slightly more proactive, that would have gotten us killed, Reggie says as he frowns, clearly uncomfortable. If you suddenly started acting like the sky was going to fall on you if you didn't shoot it down first, then they likely would have killed someone. Garros counters, and all three men look at him. I'm a philosophy professor. If there is no other skill I've developed, it's poking holes in the arguments of my students. All right, well, we were surrounded on all sides, unknown hostiles, and out in the open with a small army of civilians to protect. We called in backup, and then, after telling you to start warning people, we immediately distracted you with our little weapon comparison. We screwed up. You inadvertently kept me from a panic. From afar, that conversation probably looked like a small argument. If I had panicked and gone racing around, do you think the Sonir with the bombs would have not attacked? That your silent would have had time to stop her? I don't know, Koa says slowly. That's right. We all got out alive and safe. That's the important part. If your own actions bother you so much, then you won't be making the same mistakes again, which is the whole point of mistakes, to learn from. Mistakes when lives are on the line are unacceptable, Amadi says, before taking a deep breath and letting it out. But damn it, you're right. We don't know, and suddenly drawing weapons or moving into action could have set them off. Hell, going to talk to our girls could have set them off. For all we know, they were waiting for us to gather close to our wives to kill us with our girls all at once. Reggie lets out a little growl at that. I've been given a miracle chance to keep my family line alive, and some stupid zealot thinks that... Koa puts a hand on his shoulder, and Reggie calms a little. The massive Hawaiian man then turns to Garros. Thank you for speaking with us. This has actually helped a fair amount. We made mistakes, but mistakes we can walk away from. So we will be better prepared next time, Koa says. Or rather, we'll be less arrogant in our preparations and get work done, Reggie says with a huff. How about a change of topic? Professor Garros, when it comes to the Trin Lin, you said it represents the interdependence and interconnectivity of axiom, reason, thought, and civilization. Amadi begins. Now it's understandable that a zealous group that truly believes in what it represents might have some issue with humanity. We are capable of living without axiom. Although it could be argued that we can't, as null is simply axiom in its densest and least usable state. But I digress. What more can you tell us about it? The symbol is nearly 5,000 years old. There's some debate that moves it a few centuries forward and back, but 5,000 years is a good approximation. It appeared in no less than 7 different points around the galaxy, seemingly simultaneously. This has led to the popular theory that the Trin Lin was a symbol of a philosophical sect that broke apart and disbanded before re-emerging perhaps a generation or two later in multiple places. This coincides with the idea that it's a little older than popular convention. So, it's not really culturally centered. Interesting, Koa says as Reggie considers. No, it's been used as a symbol for numerous types of clubs and gatherings that have ranged from the benign to the absurd, and more recently by those who would claim there's right way the galaxy should be run. Is there one? Reggie asks. A right way to... Garros devolves into a slight cackle. No. Oh no. I should be charging a speaking fee. But in all seriousness, the thing that people get wrong about philosophy, and indeed about all the sciences, is that nothing is set. You have to always be ready to be proven wrong, and saying that something is settled is nothing more than an admission of ignorance and inflexibility. Philosophy is much like science, a process, not a position. I think I understand. A decent engineer can fix most anything he's practiced with. A good engineer learns from the things he fixes and can apply that knowledge to new places, Reggie says before thinking, then leaning over to look at the steaks that Koa's turning over even while deep in thought. Big man can cook on autopilot. I'm actually a little jealous. Jealously, like smug, is a bad look on any man, Koa says lightly but with a grin. Then we're both badly dressed, Reggie retorts, and there's a light chuckle. Back on topic. The Trin Lin has many supposed variations, but it's mostly due to interpretation. The actual physical shape of the symbol doesn't really change, just the classification of what each rectangle means. Furthermore, some people interpret each of its 3 traits to be composed of 4 parts, and there to be significance where each part meets at the center. It's not an interpretation that was around when the Trin Lin first came into use, but it is a moderately popular one, albeit a complicated one that often speaks more the attitude and personality of the person interpreting things that way than it does anything else. So like a horoscope? Almost certainly gibberish by itself, but the way people react to it can tell you a lot. Amadi questions. A horoscope? Garros asks. Some people place a huge emphasis on the patterns of the stars in the sky above Earth, believing that people born under particular signs are prone to acting a certain way, or that what sign is up in the sky can have a specific significance. I imagine such a thing would be a little harder to get off the ground in a galactic community, Garros remarks with a bit of a grin. He then coughs and backs up the smell of the cooking food seriously getting to him. The sweetness that hides the spice is causing it to get right into his system, and he can actively feel his core temperature drop somewhat as the spices convince his instincts that he's overheating. I need to take a step back, I'm way too close to this, Garros says and gets a rueful smile from Koa. Sorry about this, but we all have our odious habits. I came over to where you boys were making sure no one was getting hurt and got a whiff. My fault. Hey, there's nothing odious about a properly marinated steak. It's delicious and smells divine. Koa says somewhat primly. Let's agree to disagree, big man. You've not been feeding that madness to my daughters, have you? No, but I have been using more cooking techniques than they knew even existed. But the ingredients have always been things they can safely digest and enjoy. Koa assures him. I do catch the occasional lunch that's fully spiced up, but having my meals be kind of plain is a good trade-off considering how eager to please Nika, Nita, and Marisa are. Even for men, there is compromise in a relationship. You men do realize that it's unlikely for there to be so few ladies surrounding you fairly soon, right? Garros asks. I understand. I'm dreading it, but I understand, Reggie notes. Dreading? I'm still getting used to my life and wives as is. Expanding on it? I'm not sure. I've grown a fair bit more comfortable in my life and current state despite the changes, but further change? I'm not certain, Reggie admits before thinking. First things first we need to protect what we have now. First things first, Garros says in agreement before wiping his eyes. Oh goodness, excuse me. Then he flutters off to wash his face. Before any further conversation can pick up, all three men have their communicators go off. It's a text message to report in to the intelligence division when their break is over. There is business to attend to. They quickly pack away their communicators and nod. There must be some kind of information extracted, and if they're just being told to report in when their shore leave is over and not to immediately come in, or that people are being sent for protection, meaning low or non-existent danger, but there's going to be work ahead of them. No more mistakes. Koa and Reggie give Amadi an odd look. We've had a very easy time between now and our last bit of high-octane fun. We got sloppy, soft. I suppose it's emotionally healthy that the very idea of Misty or Shireen in danger makes me itch to stab something, Reggie growls out as he glances towards the two women in question. He smiles when Misty notices and blows him a kiss. Mr. Grouchy went soft, Koa says with a chuckle. Reggie just shrugs in response. I'm happier now, so you can screw off with that judgment. My life isn't anywhere near as bleak as it used to be. Hey, all I was saying is that you're in nowhere near as much a bad mood as you were before, Koa notes kindly. Is that a bad thing? Reggie challenges. Not at all, but it is noteworthy. We need a new balance. It used to be stable guy, smartass, and grouch. Now you're not a grouch anymore. What are we going to do? Straight man and two wise guys? Amadi offers and Koa scoffs. You consider Reggie a wise guy? He asks. No. Amadi answers and Koa nods before suddenly pausing and giving Amadi the stink eye. He gets a tongue stuck out at him in response. There's a playful swipe taken at the smaller man. Woo! Fight! Lilith, one of the rabbi's women, cheers. No messing up the kitchen, especially when you're messing around with your toxin flavorings, Jenny shouts. Sorry, all three men call back.